What if the real reason you feel stuck, lost or drained isn't bad luck, but a hidden force that's quietly holding you in a low vibration? A force that limits what you see, what you feel, and even what you believe is possible. Most people never question it. They live, think, and react inside a narrow frequency, a loop that keeps repeating the same emotions and experiences. But one man did question it, and what he found might be the key to breaking free. His name was Jacobo Grinberg, a Mexican neuroscientist and consciousness researcher who dared to study the invisible patterns that shape our reality. He wasn't a mystic or a guru. He was a scientist trained in psychology with a deep fascination for how the brain creates experience. His mission was bold: to prove that consciousness isn't trapped inside the skull, but connected to a vast informational field that links us all. In the 1970s and 80s, when the world was obsessed with material science, Grinberg was conducting experiments that seemed almost impossible. He claimed that the human mind could interact with reality at a level beyond physical matter, that we are not isolated beings, but part of a living matrix, a web of information that vibrates with infinite potential. He called this web the lattice. And according to his research, this lattice reacts to the frequency of our consciousness. High frequencies bring clarity, synchronicity, and expansion. Low frequencies trap us in confusion, fear, and repetition. But here's where things get strange. Jacobo Grinberg didn't just theorize this, he tested it. In one experiment, two people were placed in separate rooms, connected only by synchronized intention. When one was shown a flash of light, the other's brain registered a signal as if both minds were sharing information through an invisible field. This wasn't fantasy, it was recorded in his lab. The results hinted that thought could travel across space without any physical link. He went further, studying healers, shamans, and people who could seemingly bend reality through focus. Grinberg wanted to understand how consciousness interacts with the fabric of existence itself, and the closer he got to answering that question, the more mysterious his life became. In 1994, just as his research was gaining attention, Jacobo Grinberg vanished. No trace, no goodbye, no explanation. Some believe he was silenced for uncovering something too powerful. Others say he simply crossed into the very dimension he was studying. Whatever the truth, his disappearance turned him into a legend, and his warning became more urgent than ever. He left behind pages of notes and lectures describing a force that keeps humanity bound to a limited version of reality. He said that our thoughts, emotions, and attention tune our frequency, and if we stay focused on fear, anger, or doubt, we feed the field that imprisons us. We become trapped in a low vibration, replaying the same patterns, unaware of the freedom that lies just beyond perception. In this video, we'll uncover what Grinberg truly meant by this hidden force and how you can begin to raise your frequency to escape it. You'll learn how your mind interacts with the universal lattice, why awareness alone isn't enough to shift your state, and the practical steps Grinberg believed could unlock higher levels of consciousness. By the end, you'll see how the low frequency isn't just a metaphor. It's a real energetic condition that shapes the quality of your life. And once you understand how to rise above it, everything changes. Welcome to Awakened Synchronicity, the place where science meets spirit and mystery becomes a mirror for transformation. If you're ready to explore the unseen and awaken the hidden power within you, make sure to subscribe, and let's begin this journey into the secret frequencies of consciousness. Before we talk about the hidden force that keeps you trapped, we need to understand what Jacobo Grinberg really meant by frequency. He wasn't talking about sound waves or radio signals, at least not in the physical sense. He used the word frequency to describe the energetic vibration of consciousness itself, the rhythm at which your mind and emotions interact with the informational field that surrounds you. Every thought you have, every emotion you feel, generates a kind of vibration, a pattern of energy that Grinberg believed connects directly to the universal lattice. This lattice, he said, isn't just out there in space, It exists in and around you. It's the subtle fabric through which information flows, forming the reality you perceive. Your brain doesn't create this reality. It interprets it, shaping the signals from the lattice into the experience of life. And the clearer your frequency, the clearer the reality you experience. When your consciousness vibrates at a high frequency, meaning it's open, calm, creative, and loving, your mind aligns with higher informational states in the lattice. You perceive more possibilities, synchronicities appear, intuition sharpens, and life feels fluid. But when your vibration drops, when fear, anger, guilt, or despair dominate, the connection distorts. Your perception narrows. You start living in loops of limitation. That is what Grinberg called a low-frequency state. It's not just emotional pain, it's a form of energetic disconnection. In this state, your brain and the lattice fall out of harmony. The information you receive becomes repetitive and dense. You keep attracting the same types of experiences because your internal vibration keeps broadcasting the same signal. You're tuned to the same station of reality, the one filled with noise, confusion, and struggle. People living in low frequency often describe life as heavy. Days feel long, motivation fades, and even small goals seem impossible. You wake up tired, not because your body lacks energy, but because your consciousness is blocked. You're running a program that feeds on fear and uncertainty. You question your worth, distrust your intuition, and depend on external validation. Every attempt to move forward meets invisible resistance, the same conflicts, the same disappointments, the same feelings of nothing ever changes. Grinberg believed this wasn't coincidence. He said low frequency isn't random, it's maintained by habitual thought patterns. When you think negatively or dwell in past pain, your neurons fire in repetitive ways, shaping what he called fixed perceptual templates. These templates decide what information you allow from the lattice. If your mind expects disappointment, it literally filters the field to match that expectation. You don't see what's possible. You only see what confirms your emotional vibration. And here's the most subtle part. Most people don't realize they're in it. Low frequency becomes normal. The human brain adapts to the vibration it sustains most often. So if you've lived in stress or fear long enough, that energy feels familiar, even safe. It becomes the default frequency your consciousness returns to because the unknown, even if it's higher, feels threatening. The very act of staying low becomes a form of protection. Grinberg often warned that this unconscious alignment is the real prison. Not an external force, but an internal one. The self-sustaining vibration of low awareness. Society reinforces it too. Constant noise, emotional overstimulation, and the pressure to conform keep people looping in predictable energy states. We're taught to analyze reality, not to feel it. To react, not to observe. To consume, not to create. Every distraction keeps your attention scattered, lowering your frequency bit by bit. He said that to shift upward, one must first recognize this pattern, to feel the heaviness, to sense the repetition, and to realize that it's not who you are. It's simply a frequency your consciousness has been tuned to. Once you become aware of that, the lattice begins to respond differently. The field starts to mirror your awareness instead of your fear. And that, according to Grinberg, is where real transformation begins. Before we can understand the hidden force that keeps us trapped in a low frequency, we have to look at what Jacobo Grinberg actually discovered, his Syntergic Theory. This was not just another philosophical idea. It was a deep scientific and spiritual model that tried to explain how reality itself comes into existence through the interaction between the human brain and something much greater. What he called the lattice. Grinberg believed that the brain does not create reality. Instead, it filters it. He said that there is a vast universal field of information, an invisible structure that holds every possible pattern of energy, thought, and experience. This field, or lattice, is the source of everything that exists. Our brain is not a generator of consciousness, but a receiver, a translator and an interpreter. What we call reality is actually the result of how our brain interacts with this informational matrix. He described it like this: the lattice is everywhere and in everything. It is pure potential, a living network of information, constantly vibrating, constantly shifting. Every point within it contains the whole. Imagine a hologram, where every fragment still holds the complete image. That's how the lattice behaves. It is infinite, connected, and intelligent. Our perception of the world depends on how our neuronal field, the electromagnetic and energetic pattern produced by the brain, interacts with this lattice. The clearer and more coherent your brain's vibration, the more accurately it can receive the information from the field. When the brain is aligned, calm, and synchronized, it accesses higher layers of reality. When it's disturbed, fragmented, or dominated by fear, it distorts the signals from the lattice. That distortion becomes your personal reality, filled with confusion, conflict, and limitation. Grinberg said that reality is not fixed, it's co-created, second by second, through the meeting of your inner field and the universal lattice. Every thought, emotion, and belief you hold modifies how you interpret the infinite data around you. You are not just in reality, you are participating in its constant formation. The clearer your field, the more conscious your participation becomes. Now think about what happens when your frequency drops, when your mind is full of stress, doubt, or negativity. The brain's neuronal field loses coherence. Its informational density decreases. The connection with the lattice becomes weak, unstable. You start perceiving only fragments of reality, filtered through your fears and beliefs. The world begins to feel repetitive, like you're stuck in the same cycles. This is what Grinberg meant when he spoke of low frequency. He saw it as a mismatch. Your brain field vibrating at a low informational level, while the universal lattice continues operating at its vast, high-frequency potential. Because of that mismatch, you can't access higher patterns of information. You literally can't see possibilities that are right in front of you. You live inside a narrow bubble of perception, repeating the same emotions, thoughts, and outcomes. He believed this mismatch was the hidden force that imprisons people. It's not a force imposed from the outside, it's created from within. By the lack of harmony between your consciousness and the universal field, the lower your frequency, the less reality you can perceive. You are surrounded by infinite potential, but you keep tuning in to the same static channel. Grinberg's experiments provided stunning clues that this theory might be more than just a metaphor. In his laboratory, he conducted what he called interhemispheric correlation experiments. He connected two participants to EEG machines, placing them in separate rooms with no way to communicate. One participant was shown flashes of light, while the other sat in silence. The strange part, the second person's brain responded as if they had seen the same flashes. Their brain waves showed patterns that mirrored the first participant. This meant that information was somehow shared between them, beyond any physical or sensory connection. Grinberg suggested that their consciousness fields were synchronizing through the lattice, that the human mind can link directly to another through the underlying fabric of reality. He described it as non-local communication, proof that thought and perception can travel through the field without the limitations of distance or time. He also noticed that this connection became stronger when both participants practiced meditation or when they felt emotionally close. In other words, coherence of mind, the harmony between brain hemispheres and emotional balance, made the interaction clearer. The more chaotic or tense the participants were, the weaker the link became. This supported his claim that coherence in your neuronal field determines how well you interact with the universal lattice. Grinberg saw consciousness as the bridge between matter and the lattice. The physical brain was just a translator, a biological structure designed to turn infinite information into concrete experience. He said that when we lose coherence through stress, trauma, or constant distraction, the brain starts to interpret the lattice in a fragmented way. We only see parts of the truth, shaped by our conditioning. That's why people feel stuck in the same patterns. They're decoding the same limited frequencies over and over again. He used the term informational density to describe this difference. A high-density field receives rich, complex information from the lattice, resulting in creativity, intuition, and expansion. A low-density field, however, receives only the simplest, most repetitive data. That's why people in low frequency often experience life as dull, predictable, and painful. They are literally accessing a smaller slice of reality. And yet most people live like this without realizing it. They wake up, follow the same routines, think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and the lattice responds exactly as expected. It mirrors back the same pattern over and over. The hidden force feeds on predictability. It thrives on unawareness. Grinberg warned that this force is not malicious. It's simply a law of the field. The lattice gives you what you vibrate. If your field is low, you get low-density experiences. If your field rises, the quality of your reality changes. But here's where it gets difficult. Awareness alone doesn't change the field. Simply knowing about the lattice doesn't raise your frequency. He explained that awareness without coherence is still low-frequency knowledge. It's mental understanding without energetic transformation. You can know all the theories, read every spiritual book, talk endlessly about vibration, but if your neuronal field remains fragmented, your experience will not shift. The hidden force will pull you back into your habitual state because the field seeks stability. Grinberg's work showed that true change is structural. It happens when the brain reorganizes its energy, when both hemispheres synchronize, when emotional tension releases, when attention becomes steady and open. Only then does your field begin to resonate with higher informational levels in the lattice. That resonance allows you to perceive new patterns, new opportunities, and new meanings. He often said that the human brain is like an instrument that has forgotten its own music. It keeps playing broken notes because it's out of tune with the universal orchestra. Low frequency is simply the sound of dissonance, the disharmony between our consciousness and the field that sustains us. When you bring the instrument back into tune, the universe responds in harmony. He described several signs that a person is caught in this hidden force: constant self-criticism, repetitive thoughts, emotional exhaustion, and a sense of powerlessness, even after effort. Life begins to feel mechanical. Inspiration fades, creativity dries up, and intuition becomes silent. You might even notice that every time you try to change something, the same pattern reappears in a different form. That repetition, he said, is the signature of a field stuck in low frequency. The tragedy is that most people mistake this for normal life. They believe the world is just hard, random, or unfair. But from Grinberg's perspective, reality itself is neutral. It simply mirrors the level of informational order you bring to it. The lattice doesn't punish or reward. It reflects. If you project fear, it organizes experiences that confirm that fear. If you project coherence, it organizes experiences that confirm harmony. To change that, you must do more than think positively. You must rebuild your internal field. Grinberg believed that meditation, silence, focused breathing, and acts of awareness create small but powerful adjustments in the neuronal pattern. Over time, these adjustments accumulate, raising the informational density of the field. The more coherent your energy becomes, the more the lattice opens to you. He also observed that the hidden force resists these changes. The brain, like any system, seeks stability. When you begin to raise your frequency, old patterns fight back. You may feel emotional turbulence, doubts, or even physical discomfort. That's because your field is reorganizing, releasing stored energy that maintained the old vibration. The hidden force is not external darkness. It is the inertia of your own energy field trying to stay the same. Grinberg's theory suggests that the human journey is the process of expanding the bandwidth of perception. To live in low frequency is to exist inside a narrow corridor of possibilities. To rise in frequency is to widen that corridor, to see beyond habitual reality into the greater structure of existence. When your neuronal field synchronizes with higher levels of the lattice, intuition awakens, synchronicities multiply, and life begins to feel guided rather than random. He used to say that the brain is like a window. You can polish it or let it fog up. When it's foggy, the world looks small and gray. When it's clear, you see the vastness that was always there. The lattice never disappears, only our ability to see it does. So when you feel stuck, lost, or powerless, it's not because life is against you. It's because your inner window has narrowed, your frequency has lowered, and the hidden force, this natural law of resonance, is holding you inside your own reflection. The way out is not to fight the force, but to rise above it by reorganizing your own energy. Grinberg's Syntergic Theory gives us a map of that process. It tells us that consciousness and reality are woven from the same thread, and that our brain is both a receiver and a creator. The lattice is waiting, infinite and responsive, ready to reflect the quality of our awareness. The question is, what frequency are you choosing to broadcast? If, as Jacobo Grinberg taught, the hidden force that traps us is a mismatch between our internal field and the greater lattice, then freedom begins by changing that vibration. You can't fight the force directly, it's not an enemy, it's a pattern. But you can retune yourself. Grinberg said transformation happens not through grand gestures, but through daily, consistent acts that raise informational coherence. Each moment of awareness, each breath taken in silence, rewires the field just a little. Small shifts add up until a new reality begins to form around you. The first step is stillness. Grinberg emphasized meditation not as an escape from thought, but as a method for recalibrating the brain's electromagnetic field. When the mind becomes quiet, neurons begin to fire in synchrony. This harmony increases the informational density of the field. Your consciousness starts resonating with finer layers of the lattice. In that silence, your perception expands. You start to sense subtle energies, connections, and intuitions that were always there but hidden under mental noise. Even 5 minutes a day of genuine stillness begins to soften the grip of low frequency. Alongside meditation, he recommended conscious breathing. Breathing links body and mind, and each slow, deliberate breath reorganizes the nervous system. When you breathe deeply, you send a message through your cells that you are safe. Fear dissolves and coherence strengthens. Grinberg described breath as the bridge between dimensions, a simple yet powerful tool to align your internal rhythms with the universal ones. He often compared it to tuning a musical instrument. Before you can play, you must ensure the strings are aligned. But stillness alone is not enough. Low frequency feeds on emotional residue, pain that hasn't been processed, guilt that lingers, anger that hides beneath the surface. These emotions form knots in the neuronal field, disrupting its flow. To rise, you must clean these blocks. Forgiveness, in Grinberg's view, was not moral or religious. It was energetic hygiene. Each time you release resentment, you free a portion of your field that was trapped in repetition. Each act of letting go increases the bandwidth through which you interact with the lattice. He said that holding grudges is like trying to tune in to a cosmic frequency while static drowns the signal. Forgiveness clears the static. Sometimes it's not even about forgiving others, but forgiving yourself for the times you didn't know better, for the mistakes that taught you, for the limits you accepted. When you stop resisting your own past, energy that was frozen in regret returns as creative power. Creativity itself is one of the fastest ways to elevate frequency. Grinberg noticed that when people create painting, writing, dancing, building, their brain waves enter patterns similar to deep meditation. The hemispheres synchronize and the field becomes coherent. He called creativity a conversation with the lattice, because in those moments of flow, information from the universal field pours into the mind without resistance. You're not inventing something from nothing, you're translating data from higher layers of reality into form. Nature has the same effect. He often said that the lattice reveals itself most clearly through natural environments because nature already vibrates at high informational coherence. Trees, oceans, mountains, they don't struggle to be, they simply are. When you spend time in such spaces, your field begins to harmonize with theirs. The noise inside you quiets, and a deeper intelligence awakens. The earth itself becomes a teacher, reminding you of the rhythm your consciousness has forgotten. The next step is aligning intention. Intention, Grinberg explained, is not just thought, it's directed coherence. It's the process of aligning all layers of your being toward a single direction. Most people scatter their energy. They think one thing, feel another, and act from fear. The field becomes fragmented. When you set a clear intention, something different happens. Your neuronal field begins to organize around that aim, attracting similar informational structures from the lattice. The universe doesn't respond to words, it responds to coherence. That's why he taught that intentions must be felt, not just thought. If you say you want peace but feel anxiety, the field reads anxiety. To align intention, you must bring thought, emotion, and body into harmony. This alignment turns your entire system into a single frequency transmitter. Over time, the lattice mirrors this organized vibration back to you through synchronicities and opportunities. You begin to live in rhythm with higher informational layers instead of being trapped by lower ones. Consistency was another of Grinberg's major teachings. He said small, steady acts accumulate into profound transformation because the field responds to patterns over time. Sporadic effort creates temporary resonance. Sustained effort changes the structure permanently. Think of water carving a canyon. One drop means nothing, but repetition shapes stone. In the same way, every quiet breath, every moment of forgiveness, every creative act gradually rewires your neuronal lattice. To illustrate this, imagine your consciousness as an old radio. When you're in low frequency, the dial is stuck on a static-filled station. The same song of fear and limitation plays endlessly. Meditation, breathwork, and emotional cleansing are like carefully adjusting the tuner. At first you still hear the static, then faintly a new signal appears. Clear, harmonious, expansive. With each act of coherence, the volume of that new station increases until you realize the static was never the whole song. It was only interference. There's also the story of a woman, one of Grinberg's early study participants, who struggled for years with severe depression. Her life felt like an endless repetition of gray days. She volunteered for his meditation research, not expecting much. But over months of consistent practice, something changed. Her brainwave coherence increased, her EEG showed patterns of synchronization across both hemispheres. She reported feeling sudden moments of clarity, a quiet joy that didn't depend on circumstances. She began painting again after decades of creative silence. For Grinberg, her transformation was evidence that the field responds when the internal structure shifts. Her depression wasn't merely psychological, it was a symptom of disconnection from the lattice. Even Grinberg's own life echoed this path. He balanced rigorous science with deep mystical exploration, studying shamans and healers, not as superstitions but as living laboratories of consciousness. He saw in their practices the same principles: silence, breath, intention, ritual, connection with nature, all designed to synchronize human awareness with the larger field. For him, spirituality and neuroscience were not opposites, but complementary languages describing the same mystery. Yet he always warned of pitfalls. When people begin to raise their frequency, they often expect miracles, instant awakening, effortless peace, or dramatic results. But the hidden force resists sudden change. The field's inertia keeps you in familiar vibrations because stability, even if painful, feels safer to the nervous system than expansion. Grinberg said transformation unfolds in waves, moments of light followed by shadow, breakthroughs followed by resistance. The key is to keep your practice steady through both. Another danger he spoke about was the illusion of spiritual superiority. Many fall into new low-frequency traps disguised as enlightenment, pride, judgment, or obsession with mystical power. These are subtle forms of ego using the language of spirit. When that happens, the field becomes distorted again. Real elevation is humble, quiet, and grounded. It doesn't seek to escape the world, it seeks to perceive it more clearly. Skepticism, too, must be balanced with faith. Grinberg never wanted blind belief. He was a scientist after all. He asked people to test everything through experience. Feel the shift. Observe how your perception changes after meditation, how synchronicities appear when you set coherent intention, how peace emerges when you release resentment. Reality itself becomes the laboratory. You don't need to believe in the lattice for it to work. You only need to interact with it consciously. And yes, resistance will come. The hidden force does not vanish easily. As you start to rise, old emotional patterns surface for release. Relationships may change, identities may crumble, habits may fall apart. This is the field reorganizing. Grinberg compared it to a storm that clears stagnant energy so new light can enter. He told his students not to fear these disruptions, but to welcome them as signs that transformation is real. Through all of this, he reminded people of their power. The same mechanism that traps you can liberate you. The field does not decide your fate, it mirrors your coherence. The moment you take responsibility for your vibration, you begin to rewrite the code of your reality. Each breath, each intention, each act of awareness is a command sent into the lattice, shaping the next moment of existence. If you ever doubt your ability to shift, start small. Pause right now. Inhale deeply through your nose. Hold the breath for a second, then release slowly. Feel the air move through you. For that brief instant, you are fully present. No past, no future, only this pulse of existence connecting you to everything. That is the lattice responding. That is the moment of reconnection. Do this often, between tasks, before sleep, when tension rises. Let silence become your refuge and breath your anchor. Watch how small acts begin to open space inside you. Creativity will return. Intuition will sharpen. The same world will start to look different because you're perceiving it through a new frequency. Jacobo Grinberg's message was never about escaping reality. It was about rediscovering its depth. The hidden force loses its hold when you stop fighting and start aligning, when you treat consciousness not as a thought but as a living field. You remember that every second offers a choice to stay in static or to tune into the vast music that has always been playing beneath it. So in the end, what Jacobo Grinberg warned us about wasn't some distant mystery. It was a mirror. The hidden force that keeps us stuck is the quiet mismatch between our brain's field and the vast universal lattice that surrounds us. When we live disconnected, caught in fear, repetition and low emotional charge, we cut ourselves off from the infinite flow of possibilities that reality offers. Grinberg's message was simple, but powerful. Reality isn't something that just happens to you, it's something you co-create every second. The more coherent your inner field becomes, the more aligned you are with that universal intelligence. That's when life begins to feel fluid again. Synchronicities appear, intuition grows sharper, and reality starts reflecting your higher state back to you. This was his true warning. You can't raise your frequency by words alone. You must live the alignment through silence, through awareness, through each choice that harmonizes you with the greater field. It's not about escaping your human experience, it's about remembering your power within it. Because in the end, your frequency is your reality. Every thought, emotion, and breath shapes the world you perceive. And when you learn to tune your field to move beyond static into harmony, you begin to live as a conscious participant in creation itself. If you want, I'll guide you through a full transformation step by step in the next videos. Stay tuned because this journey with Jacobo Grinberg's wisdom is just beginning. If this message resonated with you like this video, share it with someone who might need it today and subscribe to Awaken Synchronicity so you don't miss the next exploration into consciousness and the hidden structure of reality.